Morning, friends. It's indeed a great pleasure and a great initiative to brief all basic nephrology to IMA members. I congratulate Dr. Khanna and team for such an excellent thing. It's indeed a great from my good friend Ajay Khair, and now I will be talking with the case presentation on potassium disorder. Basically, two potassium disorder. One is the hypokalemia and hyperkalemia. I am going to talk in brief. Now, basically, I will talk about the patient, 50 years old man with history of congestive heart failure, presented in emergency department with weakness and palpitation. His medication included furosemide, digoxin, carvedilol, and atorvastatin. In ECG, there was tachycardia, T-wave inversion, and prominent U-wave. Potassium was very low, 2.9, and sodium was 132. Now the question arises that how do we tackle this patient with hypokalemia? The first and foremost clinical presentation, that how symptomatic patient is. Patient with weakness, paralysis, cardiac arrhythmia, and ECG changes, they need more priority. Here, the potassium level was low, and therefore we would like to treat it at earliest, and therefore for emergency management of hypokalemia, our goals are to replace potassium deficit and to treat life-threatening complications, to minimize ongoing losses, and to treat underlying etiology for the same. Now, why we need IV potassium supplementation in this case? Because hypokalemia is severe and symptomatic, and therefore we would like to start with IV potassium supplementation. Now the question arises that what are we going to select? Add potassium in the pint. Now let us look at the commercially available fluids, that which are the potassium containing. Out of that, truly potassium rich is isolite M, which is 35 milliequivalent, and other isolates P, G are 20 and 17 milliequivalent. But remember that balanced fluid like Ringer's lactate and plasma light are very poor in potassium, so never try to give this fluid to correct hypokalemia. Better way is to add potassium in IV fluid, because then we will able to correct it in proper way. And the molecule which is preferred is potassium chloride, because that also corrects associated metabolic alkalosis, and therefore we routinely use KCl injection to add in the pint. That is 10 ml of commercially. How much is potassium does it contain? Answer is simple, that each one ampule contains 20 milliequivalent of potassium, and in this 20 milliequivalent of potassium we need to put it in pint, and there are certain rules, basic guidelines, not a rule, but basic guidelines, that on an average we don't give more than 10 milliequivalent per hour. In more than 40 milliequivalents, that means more than 2 ampule of KCl, usually we don't add. If patient is having severe hypokalemia, then also in 24 hours, usually we don't give more than 20 milliequivalent. And if such a large amount of given, invariably we should have close ECG monitoring. Isolite M is 35 milliequivalent, so we don't add potassium in it. And KCl, very, very important, be given slowly as an infusion and should never be given intravenous directly, because it can give rise to sudden cardiac arrest. Now, if we have peripheral line, then the maximum concentration permissible to protect vein is 40 milliequivalent per liter. If we need to give concentrated KCl because we want to restrict the fluid for any given reason, then we need to use a central line. So this is something which is very important. Large amount of potassium supplementation, continuous cardiac monitoring. Now, we need to see that the mode of administration should be friendly to vein and it should not cause local thrombophlebitis. So that is something which is important. For that, desired rate of infusion is 10 milliequivalent or less per hour, or if it is in IV fluid. Now, we need to keep in mind that when we are preparing infusion drip, which fluid will you use? Answer is that routinely use saline and or half normal saline. But remember that don't use 5% dextrose as a diluent, because when dextrose containing fluid will be infused, especially rapidly, it will stimulate insulin, and this insulin will shift potassium from extracellular to intracellular compartment and will aggravate pre-existing hypokalemia. And therefore, remember that always add KCl in sodium containing fluid and not in dextrose containing fluid. KCl is heavy, so always check the bottle well before preparing your infusion and give it slowly. Now, it's important that along with the treatment of potassium, we need to look at the problem. See, some of the patient we are giving potassium adequately in saline containing fluid, but we are not able to correct it. So we try to treat underlying etiology. And second thing, that if patient is having hypomagnesemia, in presence of hypomagnesemia, we will not able to correct hypokalemia. So always in all patients of hypokalemia, look at the magnesium, and large number of patients also needs magnesium supplementation. So to start with, we vigorously treat hypokalemia with potassium supplementation, but simultaneously we provide oral potassium rich diet, that is to cover the deficit. If patient is able to take oral, then simultaneously we would like to give potassium chloride syrup, Potchlor being used widely. 15 ml contains 20 milliequivalent of potassium. Tablets are available. The commonly used tablet contains 10 milliequivalent of potassium. We need to keep in mind and we need to compare that potassium containing syrup is fairly rich in potassium. 1 ampule of KCl contains 20 milliequivalent of potassium, and 15 ml of Potchlor liquid also contains 20 milliequivalent. So my friends, when you are treating patient with hypokalemia, we need to keep this thing in mind. Now, patient who is having congestive heart failure, receiving diuretics, we are not able to remove diuretics because patient needs it for the cardiac problem. Then how do we really manage? We manage all the measures which we have conveyed, but subsequently we add potassium sparing the thiazide diuretics like spironolactone or amiloride to see that patient do not end up with hypokalemia. So this is how we practice hypokalemia in day-to-day patients. Now, coming to second problem of potassium disorder, and we would like to start with the case. A patient of hypertension with congestive heart failure presented in emergency department with weakness and giddiness, was receiving Ramipril, spironolactone, and atorvastatin. Heart rate was just 40, total T waves widened, QRS complex, potassium was fairly high, 7.9, and creatinine was 1.6. So there was mild renal impairment. So how will you manage this patient of hyperkalemia? See, hyperkalemia we label when serum potassium is greater, and as compared to hypokalemia, it is less common problem, but it's potentially dangerous problem because it can lead to sudden many of the severe life-threatening cardiac complications. Amongst different causes of hyperkalemia, renal failure, potassium sparing diuretics, RAS blockers are the most common, which we have witnessed in our patient. Now, when we have such patient with severe hyperkalemia, the question arises that so many modalities of treatment available: insulin, bicarb, salbutamol nebulizer, dialysis, loop diuretics, cation exchange, resins, calcium gluconate. So how will you start the therapy? What will be the mode of selection? Which will you start first and which will you? So the question arises that these measures we can divide it into two parts. Number one is temporary measures, which is for cardioprotection, calcium gluconate. Second, temporary measures will not eliminate potassium from body, but will shift HCF to ICF potassium, that is glucose insulin, nebulized salbutamol, and bicarbonate therapy. So this is temporary measures, and temporary measures should have even specific treatment for correction, that is removal of the excess potassium from body. Measures are loop diuretic, cation exchange, resins, dialysis, and don't forget that why patient has developed hyperkalemia. So treat underlying problem, underlying precipitating cause, and this is how we will go ahead. Now the question arises that with such a high potassium of 7.9, what will be the first measure which you would like to order to your staff? So the question arises, the answer of the question is that start with calcium gluconate. It is the first measure to treat hyperkalemia. It works very fast. It works fastest, but duration is short. And therefore, calcium gluconate should be given IV slowly. See, it's not, I mean, we give first ampoule of injection calcium gluconate, see how is the response. If patient is not responding, even we repeat after 5 minutes, and such 2 to 3 calcium gluconate can be given to protect heart from the ill effect of the hyperkalemia. Effect of calcium gluconate is short-lived and therefore need to be repeated as per the requirement. But calcium does not change potassium at all. It's just a cardio which we will use to reduce potassium temporarily is the insulin and dextrose. See, insulin is the fastest, most consistent and reliable treatment to lower potassium and is indicated in all patients, the most potent amongst all agents. And we give dextrose just to correct insulin-induced hypoglycemia, but otherwise glucose per se has no role to be used in hyperkalemia. If blood sugar is greater than 250 milligram, then you can observe blood sugar. You may not give dextrose following insulin and monitor it. Now, it works fast and therefore bolus should be given. See, when we are in crisis, start with the bolus of insulin followed by dextrose, and subsequent doses you can add insulin in dextrose 25%, and this is how insulin and dextrose. Now, after calcium and insulin, dextrose, what is the third parameter, third measure which we should use? Should we use bicarb or salbutamol nebulizer? Answer is that beta-2 agonist salbutamol nebulizer is something which is very potent, but is bit underutilized. And therefore, we need to have greater awareness of using it. Now, a high dose of the salbutamol is given through nebulization. One set will be 15 to 30 minutes, will have effect for 2 to 4 hours. Very important. Remember that dose recommended for hyperkalemia is different than that for the bronchodilator. For bronchodilation, we use 2 respule, that is 5 milligram, but for hyperkalemia, it is as high as 10. Therefore, 4 to 8 respules. So don't forget that. See, we say that give salbutamol nebulizer, but if we don't instruct our nursing staff to give 4 to 8 MP respules of Asthalin, then response will not be adequate. So using this pyramid, this modality in right dose is something which is very important. Bicarbonate, often used when it is not required, and should be used selectively and not routinely. Say it is most effective in non-NIN gap metabolic acidosis, less effective in high NIN gap metabolic acidosis and renal failure. And in presence, if there is no metabolic acidosis, don't use this modality. So this is something which is very, very important. Now, bicarb can lead to and therefore should not be used unless it is indicated. Potassium binding agents, many are available internationally, but in India, at all places available is only one, and that is sodium polystyrene sulfonate Kexalate powder, available and marketed by many companies. So that is given 3 times a day, and don't give it with lactulose, because lactulose is found to cause colonic necrosis. So this can have long-term effect, but we should have initial basic therapy to lower potassium when we are dealing with hyperkalemia. Now, other measures which are useful is if patient is having severe hyperkalemia and because of other reasons like significant renal failure, the short-term modalities, other modalities are not effective. Is very, very effective and can immediately bring down the potassium. Very important, don't forget that if patient is hypovolemic, correct it with a fluid, balanced fluid, and give loop diuretics. So this is important. Now, don't forget that if patient is taking potassium sparing diuretics, receiving ARBs, the SE inhibitor, NSAIDs, then discontinue offending agent, or not, if not possible, reduce their doses and go ahead. Dietary restriction of potassium is something which is very, very important. This is nutshell how do we manage the patient of hyperkalemia. So pay attention to underlying problem, try to correct it. Potassium restriction. If patient is having severe hyperkalemia, then the measures which we have discussed should be given. Diuretics with adequate correction of the hypovolemia is important, and this is how we treat hyperkalemia in day-to-day practice. At this juncture, I would like to thank all my friends for